There we go, 1945, we made it. Now let's have a little overview of the country. We still control Holland. We still have full control of Friesland because we control 57% of the victory points. And we have also retained full control of Brabant because, again, we control 87% of the victory points. So our requirement to not lose our continental states has been fulfilled. Zuiderzee works have been continued and completed, so we can check that mark off as well. And finally, it is 1945. Go to our achievements. We have completed treading the narrow path, did not cave to the Germans, we continued to Zuiderzee works, and we did not lose control of any of our continental European states until 1945. And as a nice cherry on top, we did it the royalist way, the right way. All that's left now is to capitulate the Germans and the rest of the Axis, which might prove difficult considering the Soviet Union's also in this, but this game has just evolved into a giant mess. Just for the achievement, we're done here. I'm not going to continue this. The AI has given me a killer headache. But first, if you like these videos, leave a like, consider subscribing for more of these, and tell me what you want to see next down in the comments. Now, on to the video. Welcome back, folks. Bittersteel here with another guide for Hearts of Iron 4. Now today, we're taking a long hard look at the Netherlands and the Narrow Path achievement. Meaning we have to make it to 1945, continue the Zuiderzee works, and we can't lose control of any of our continental states. And to spice things up, we're going to do so via the Monarchist path. Now, as a Belgian, it pains me deeply to develop such a successful strategy for the Netherlands, but for you guys, I shall endure. Now, first off, country overview. We are despicable neutrals, meaning we can't really get involved with anything until we get rid of this national spirit. But for the purpose of this guide, this one is pretty irrelevant. Next up, the shell-shocked spectators. This basically gimps our manpower and factory output into near nothingness, and we want to get rid of this as quickly as possible. The crisisjaren, a pretty bad modifier to our construction speed, and we're also going to be getting rid of this as soon as we can. Then finally, weak government. It's, well, not great, but also not the end of the world. This one is going to get yeeted along the way anyway. So for a plan of action, let's start with research. We have 3 slots, pretty decent. Gonna start out with the classics, focusing on electromagnetic or electronic engineering and the basics of industry. Once we catch up on those, we will shift our focuses between industry and improvements to our army. As for army improvements, we'll focus on getting engineers. These are vital to our survival. Anti-tank to keep those German panzers out of our beautiful polders. And doctrines. Now, it's a bit of a toss-up between Grand Battle Plan for the entrenchment and defense, and superior firepower for the organization and soft attack. Both are viable, while Grand Battle Plan lends itself very well to just sitting there and waiting for 1945 to roll in, especially if the Allies completely fold, while superior firepower will give us more options to counter once the initial firestorm calms down. Now, other than those, be sure to keep up with industry, infantry equipment, and whatever support units you might want to add, such as anti-air or artillery. For production, we're going to kick things off with guns. Lots of guns and nothing but guns. The boys need their weapons, otherwise we can't even get them out into the field. Now, as for our army, you notice we are sitting on not a lot of manpower, not the world's greatest manpower pool. We do, however, have a puppet with a lot of manpower, which we can simply steal. So we're going to go into these templates, Dutch East Indies, and copy both of their templates. The infantry division is pretty decent. It's close to our desired 20 combat width. And then there's this garrison division. What we are going to be doing is spamming out a bunch of these garrison divisions at a high priority. And, well, these have to be deployed in the Dutch East Indies, but the troops will very home. They're not in much danger yet. And we're just going to be spamming those out. Now, as for our starting troops, it's not a horrible template. It's identical to the colonial one, only this one uses actual Dutchmen instead of colonials. But we don't have the manpower to support these just yet. So what are we going to do? We're going to switch all of these over to the KNIL Koloniale Garnizoen, the smallest of the two colonial templates, giving us a bunch of infantry equipment, well, some infantry equipment, that then goes towards these troops that we're training, getting more of them out into the field quicker. We don't need to set any front lines just yet, just park them somewhere, assign a general there, and any new troops will go here until we have roughly 54 divisions in the field. So that will be enough to fill out 2 full armies, since one of our general can command 30 troops instead of the standard 24. Now, once the army is printed out, we'll be converting them to a useful template and focus on actually arming the men. Now, construction. We're going to build forts. We're going to turn this into Fortress Holland. We're going to build level 6 forts in the city of Leeuwarden, which is the port up here in Friesland. And then a line of level 6 forts between the city of Utrecht and Eindhoven. And then we're going to build another line on the Belgian border between the city of Eindhoven and the coastal tile right above Belgium. So not this stretch down here, but the one that has to take the land crossing towards Belgium. Now, you'll notice that this does mean giving up some territory to the Germans, but for the achievement, it doesn't matter. Leeuwarden and Utrecht will give us control of that area along with its resources and factories. And same for Brabant, we can give up Maastricht and the province next to Eindhoven, as well as that tiny splotch next to Belgium. If we hold on to the rest, we maintain control of the province, and that is what matters for the achievement. Now, for focuses, we are going to go abandon the gold standard and then straight down to continue the Zuiderzee works. This will focus on getting rid of the construction penalty early and giving us a serious industrial edge, as well as not having to worry about relying on the AI to retake our land for us, since we need full control of Friesland to take this focus. And it would be terrible to sit there in 1945 in an unassailable fortress, but we just can't push out because we don't have the manpower and the AI is brain dead. So if we get that out of the way, all we need to do is ride out the storm till 1945. Abandon the gold standard. As for your ships, just make a few convoys. We'll be trading a lot. Speaking of trade, at the start, France is a decent trading partner, even if those factories will end up going to Germany. If you're opposed to this, the United Kingdom is a viable alternative. And with all that out of the way, we're going to set the speed to maximum and just kick things off. So we're just going to sit here for a bit, force deploying these terrible units until we have filled up these 2 armies. As for our industry, we're going to be focusing on dispersed industry. It's simply the better choice for a country like the Netherlands. We'll be shifting our production lines around a lot, so dispersed it is. We'll start getting a few more military factories. Keep putting them in infantry equipment at the start. We want to have at least 5 factories on infantry equipment. We're going to have a massive shortage of it, so the more guns we can put out, the better. As we get more factories available to us, we'll also be diversifying into support equipment, so we can equip our troops with engineers and some anti-tank, so we can get rid of, or at least slow down, those German panzers trying to wreck our polders and our windmills. In the research tree, the industry branch will be focusing on construction at the start. We want to get our construction speed as high as we can because we really need those forts built to keep the Germans at bay and have ourselves a nice little Fortress Holland. This way it lines up nicely with the bonuses we get from going down the construction speed path of our tree towards the Zuiderzee works and the Zuiderzee works itself.
A few moments later.
And with that, we have our 54 troops in the field. They're all garbage, I know. So we're going to be converting their template into something a little more reasonable. The Colonial Infanterie Divisie. This one is 18 width, and we'll be modifying it into a 20 width division as soon as we're able. So convert these troops over. Now you'll notice we are short a lot of guns. But fear not, even if we cannot get rid of this shortage by the time the war kicks off, the Allies are more than willing to send us many guns in the early months of the war that should get rid of our shortage altogether. Now, as for our battle lines, now might be a good idea to set up our troops where they're going to be staying. We're going to take the largest of the two armies, and they're going to man this line, stretching from the coastal province up to the province right above Eindhoven, while the second army is basically going to be split in two, with half of them guarding Utrecht and half of them guarding Leeuwarden. Now, this will leave the largest of the two armies a little more stretched out. We can amend this by either having some allied troops filling up that gap, as British troops might get stuck in our lands or decide to defend here, or once more resources free up, we'll start deploying more of our own troops here as well to fill in those gaps and ease the pressure on the line. But for now, this is what we're going to be working with. In preparation for more factories to come out, we'll set up production lines for some more things we'll need. We will need artillery, we will need support equipment, and as soon as we have researched it, should be done relatively quickly once we've caught up with industry, is getting ourselves some anti-tank so we can start production of that as well. Now, as these troops have just been converted into these new templates, we're going to want them to exercise until trained to get rid of the horrible penalty of being green. Once these fill up with the required manpower, their experience also isn't going to decrease as new equipment floods in. That only happens when their manpower pool is replenished. Now, as for political power, we're going to take our first investment and take the anti-revolutionary for additional political power gain, 10%. We're going to be following up with a military theorist second, and third, a war industrialist, so we can get ourselves some military factories quicker. After that, it's going to depend on our war support and how things are moving in the world. But ideally, we would follow that with partial mobilization, the army infantry expert, then the army defense expert, and then probably a war should fire. Once the war has started, we can then get war economy and invest our political power at our own leisure by then. But we'll come back to that once it's relevant. Now, you may be wondering, but bitter steel, what about the Navy? Did you forget about those? Well, yes, in fact I did. You can group up your Navy and set them to do some naval exercises in either the Channel or the Eastern North Sea, doesn't really matter. But make sure to group them up, give them an admiral. The Navy isn't particularly strong, but it's sizable and it will help us secure our convoys in the English Channel during the war. Anti-tank, one of those things we want to get quickly, as well as the engineer company. That extra entrenchment is going to be vital. Now, as for doctrines, I'm going to go with trench warfare here, the grand battle plan, because I have very little faith in the AI actually performing consistently. So trench warfare is going to give us the biggest defense and entrenchments bonuses. Now, if you want, you can still go with superior firepower. It's really up to you for your game. I just have very little faith in the AI being competent. Now, as for timing, I suggest doing the first one of these early, like now, and then waiting on doing the next stages until later down our focus tree, once we can do appoint new supreme commander. This will give us 2 research bonuses to land doctrines and give us a much increased speed in getting them. It's more efficient that way, trust me. Now, with Toad anti-tank researched, let's hop back to the industry tree, keep working on optimizing the industry, and set up a factory to start producing anti-tank as soon as we have a factory available to do so. In fact, it's a noble cause to destroy panzers, so let's just take 1 away from infantry equipment and plop it right back so it fills up as soon as one's available. Just start getting some anti-tank out early. We'll need a lot of it if we are to slow down the Germans. Now, as you're doing the Zuiderzee works, you will have some of these events, I believe 2. One will give you a nice bonus to construction speed for infrastructure, while the second event is going to give you a bonus to, I believe, military factories and civilian factories. Don't quote me on that. You'll see later on in the video. Unfortunately, we're not building any of that, and we won't be for quite a while. So these are not an excellent idea. We don't have the funds for this right now, sadly. we need our political power for other more useful things, like a military theorist. Considering that research-wise we're almost caught up in industry, and we'll be starting on some of these infantry equipment techs, it might not be a bad idea to just get the infantry equipment designer first, before getting the war industrialist, because for the meantime we're still going to be building these bunkers instead of military factories. Now that we have a bit of army experience, not much but enough, we're going to take our Infanterie Divisie and we're going to edit it, add a unit of infantry to it. That should make it 20 width and a very decent amount of defense. As more experience trickles in, we will also be adding on support artillery, an engineer company, and if our production allows for it, anti-tank and anti-air. This is a bit dependent on just how many of these we can get out onto the field, and if the allies are willing to help us out in that regard.
Later.
With the Zuiderzee works done, we're going to turn towards overturn military budget cuts, then prepare the inundation lines. Germany is the greater threat, obviously. And finally, war on pacifism, so we can start getting some of our own manpower out onto the field, or at least having some of it available for use, because this is really terrible. Now with the Zuiderzee works behind us, we now have a nice boost to our ahead of time, and we can get construction 3 really early, really quick. With the military budget cuts done, let's prepare to flood the country. And since we have 2 of these lovely bonuses, we're also going to get dispersed industry 3 way ahead of time, which is very nice, because we need a lot of those guns out in the field. But oh god, we need a lot of guns. I mean, at this rate, we'll probably make it by the time war rolls around. We still need a lot of the other stuff as well. So as you get closer and closer to 1939 and 1940, consider taking a few factories out of infantry equipment and move them towards support equipment, artillery, anti-tank, and all that other good stuff. Because guns are something that your allies are very willing to send you, while the other stuff, not so much. This is a hole we can fill relatively easily, while for the other stuff we are very much on our own. In fact, let's have a look how much of it we're going to be needing to equip our boys with at least some engineer companies. Oh yeah, we need a lot of support equipment. Oof, let's see, how long is that gonna take? Ooh, almost 2,000 days. Yeah, we're gonna take one factory away from guns and put it towards support equipment. Our next batch of political power, not much interesting to get, except for the war industrialist at this point. This man is going to help us build military factories once we have our fort line in place. Yes, Germany is the greater threat. As you can see, having prepared the inundation lines, we now have the event or decision to inundate the water lines, giving us a nice bonus to both entrenchment speed and division defense, at the expense of making our divisions super slow, which is fine because we don't want them to move, and it's going to damage our infrastructure and factories, but that's something we can repair reasonably quickly. That defense bonus is going to be saving our bacon when the Germans come. So we're going to use this as soon as war starts. And with another 10 army experience in the bag, let's add on some support artillery. And another very large hole we need to fill here. Oh yeah. Ooh, it's a lot of guns. Now, having confirmed that Germany is in fact the greater threat, we will be taking the war on pacifism. Yeah, screw you, pacifism. Now, I'm being hopeful here, but we're also going to add on a production line for towed anti-air on the off chance that we will ever get to produce some of it. The fort line is more important than factories, but towed anti-air could be helpful if the allies are not keen on providing air support. Now with the war on pacifism done, we now have a few more decisions here under the war on pacifism. You have 3 options. The first 2 are terrible. The last one is not so terrible. The anti-pacifist propaganda. You want to take this until the modifier shell-shocked spectator of the Great War is gone. So every tick of this takes off 10%, 5%, and 4%. Meaning, to get rid of it completely, we have to do it 5 times. Another nice bonus of this is it will give us some weekly war support. Meaning, if we do it enough, we are finally capable of shifting away from civilian economy into partial mobilization. And for our focuses, we are going to appoint a new supreme commander. Just remember to keep clicking these anti-pacifist propaganda decisions every time it becomes available, so every 60 days until you've gotten rid of your shell-shocked spectator. And with our new Supreme Commander appointed, it's time to do some more appointments. I like a new government. Ours is shit. The new one is not going to be all that much better, but it's a necessary step. Don't forget to keep up with the pacifist propaganda. And now that we do have a new Supreme Commander, let's appoint him, Henry Winkelmann. He'll have some very good defensive stats, unyielding defender, defensive doctrine, and let's make him charismatic as well. This is the man who is going to keep the Germans out of our polders. There we go. A new government forms. Let's hope it's more stable than the last. Let's have a look. And it's awful. At least he has a great mustache. Next order of business, gateway to Europe. This will allow us to start taking some of these decisions to placate the British or placate the Germans, with the end result being us taking all their political power. Sounds like a noble cause to throw our weight behind. Now with Gateway to Europe complete, you'll notice we are still locked out of maintain trade neutrality. We first have to get both the German Reich and the United Kingdom to 50 trade influence, and they can be more than 5 points apart. While we work on that, let us develop the Randstad, get ourselves some more civilian factories. And yes, I know the research bonus for concentrated industries doesn't help us, but if we go down the Zaanstad, which does give us a bonus to dispersed, it requires us to have full control of Friesland down the tree, and trust me, we're not going to have full control of Friesland for the rest of the game. Plus, the Randstad leads to the Emuiden steel mill, giving us more steel, which is vital for our factories, and a nice airplane designer. So I choose the Randstad. Let's start out by placating the Germans. Let's bring them a little closer to the British.
20 minutes later.
There we go. We have both the Germans and the British on 50 trade influence, and we are about to complete the Randstad. So we're all primed for the next focus. That next focus being maintaining the trade neutrality, meaning we're going to take all that political power that Britain and Germany have invested and use it for ourselves. Meanwhile, with our war support climbing, wait for it to reach 25% so we can finally switch out to partial mobilization, get construction going a little bit quicker. And with production of anti-tank in full swing, start adding that to our templates as well. We've started producing some towed anti-air, but with only one in stockpile, might want to hold off just a little bit before we start adding that to our templates. There we go, we have maintained trade neutrality. Next order of business, Oranje boven. Let's go with the Queen. We don't want the legacy of the Zeven Provinciën mutiny. That's the filthy commie path. We are going for the glorious monarchs. Get ourselves Queenie here. Now I'll keep pumping out the anti-pacifist propaganda if you need it for the war support.
12 seconds later.
Now with 25% war support in place, we can finally switch out to partial mobilization and use some of that hefty political power that we just took from Germany and Britain to also get ourselves an infantry expert. 10% division attack and defense, that's nothing to scoff at.
20 minutes later.
Now with Oranje boven complete, we are well on our way of establishing Monarchist Netherlands. Just need to get more daily support for unaligned and get that through a symbol of resistance, but we're going to hold off on that one. First, we are going to get the fort line completed. Fortress Holland. And with the next batch of political power, let's get Chief of the Army, Henry Winkelmann, Army Defense, and our 10% division defense. Boy, we're gonna need it if we're gonna keep our windmills safe. Now in preparation for the war, and seeing that we need a lot of equipment, let's start adding some factories to fill this out once they complete. With Fortress Holland complete, we can now modernize the Grebbeline. More forts, more forts, more forts for Fortress Holland.
A few inches later.
With the Grebbeline modernized, that's going to be all the forts for us before the war kicks off. Now, let's prepare for that eventuality by siding with Britain. We know they're going to have our back. So let's go with Britain. Now, in preparation for that focus to finish, improve your relations with Britain, because if they're this low, they're never going to accept. You want it to be as high as possible. And having the British on your side early means they will ferry troops into your country and help shore up your lines, so the Germans won't just walk in while your troops are a little undersupplied. Speaking of undersupplied, let's add the final support company for now to our divisions, support anti-air. Yes, we don't have enough of it. We'll rely on the allies to give us more, and we can always produce it. So we're working on that as well. Our stockpiles are nowhere near full, but as I said before, once war kicks off, you will get so many offers for Lend-Lease, you won't even believe it. You won't even have the convoys to take all the stuff in. And there we go. The Second World War has kicked off with Poland refusing the German ultimatum. Now, for the next 35 days, none of our concern. We have finished Go with Britain, and due to our high relationship with the British, the Netherlands joins the Allies. The British have accepted us. The next focus we're going to take is a symbol of resistance, improving our division attack and defense on core territory by 10%, which is amazing considering the amount of Germans we are up against, as well as improving daily support for unaligned, meaning we are going to be a little bit closer to getting the Queen in power. Now, we're not going to spend our political power just yet. We're going to hold on to it for a little bit longer until we go to war, so we can get war economy. That's just that much better than partial. Now, as you can see, because we are a member of the Allies, France feels compelled to defend our borders, and so does the UK. It's very wonderful. The more defenders, the merrier. Now, this does mean there are fewer troops left to man the Alp fronts, the Maginot, but the Maginot is not getting penetrated unless France is really stupid. But mostly, there are fewer troops left to defend the gap created by Luxembourg and Belgium. So there is a very high possibility that the Allied AI will fail spectacularly and see the entire continent overrun. Now, we should have enough divisions and they should be dug in well enough to hold off the Germans, but it's going to be a wild ride. If you are not interested in fighting this alone, what you can do is draw your troops down to also cover the province of Maastricht and the Belgian and Luxembourg border with your troops in place, combined with the French and British forces and the rather sizable Belgian army. You should be able to hold against the German onslaught, but you will not be able to go down here and revive the buffer state proposal, which requires Belgium and Luxembourg to be capitulated. Now, we are banking on the fact that Belgium and Luxembourg get overrun, while we will be holding fast like a rock in the waves, maybe after the war netting us a significant amount of territory alongside our achievement. Now, with war looming, it's time for the Navy to do something useful. We're going to set them to convoy escorting in the British Channel, the English Channel, as this is where most of our trade passes through. And Germany is putting pressure on the Benelux. It's a matter of time now before they declare war on us, Belgium and Luxembourg. Now, the German AI is something rather weird. They will realize that while fighting Poland, it's not the best idea in the world to declare on other strong countries, like, for instance, a heavily militarized Belgium or Netherlands. And they might even hold off declaring war on Luxembourg if they cannot capitulate either us or Belgium quickly. So in your game, the situation might not evolve at the same pace. That is very unfortunate. I'm sorry about that, but that's just the way the AI is programmed to work. It will respond to the reality it's faced with.
A few moments later.
There we go. The German Reich has declared war. Now we're in it to win it. First order of business, modify the government, get ourselves war economy. Second order of business, we are going to flood the country and inundate the water lines. This will give us a hefty 50% division defense bonus at the expense of reducing our division speed by half, well, 50%. It's not a big problem. We don't want our divisions moving all that much anyway, and it will also damage several factories in the States, but we can repair those. And like I said before, having entered the war, the amount of Lend-Lease offers you will be receiving is actually so large that you probably don't even have the convoys to accept all of it. Just accept everything people offer you. Every free gun is a free gun, and the Dutch East Indies can stay out of this war. Otherwise, they will ship their troops around to strange places. Now, as it looks like the German AI might push into Belgium rather quickly, it might be a good idea to change the composition of our lines slightly, shifting 2 of these troops from the north down to the southern part of this line. Extend that into the next province, meaning that we can fold back this army on the Belgian border just a little bit, making it a bit of a denser line. With the symbol of resistance complete, we can finally get rid of the defeatist government, that terrible, terrible prime minister. Let's kick him out and replace him with little Churchill and keep accepting all these offers for free stuff. Free stuff is free stuff, man.
Meanwhile,
now you'll notice that Germany is rather slow with pushing into Belgium, and they haven't even declared war on Luxembourg. Now this is that strange AI behavior I mentioned before, in part because they also have to keep a significant amount of their force on my borders, meaning they can't go ham on Belgium, and they just consider Luxembourg to be too much of a threat. Now, if in your game they steamroll Belgium, that's fine. We are Fortress Netherlands, Fortress Holland. We will hold for as long as we have to. All that we need to do at this point is to reach 1945 intact without losing any more provinces. Now, if Belgium and France hold at this point, that's also great for the achievement. All you have to do is let the game pass and run along until 1945 for your achievement as well. So let's just see what happens. Now for the Dutch East Indies, and in preparation of the inevitable Japanese attack, we can start training up a few of these colonial infantry divisions. These are actually the excellent template we have just designed, and they will serve as port guards for our Dutch East Indies. About 2 for every port tile should do. 1 might even be enough. And Japan can launch all the naval invasions it wants. They will never take the islands of Sumatra and Java while we man the ports. The rest of the islands are expendable. Now you'll see after a few successful runs of the Lend-Lease, our deficit of guns has decreased significantly. We are almost ready to equip every soldier in the field with a rifle. And yes, the French AI is brilliant, attacking headfirst into the Alps, into entrenched positions. Thanks, France. Now, with our defeatist government replaced, let's have a look at some more options. We're going to be heading towards this research slot here, but to do that we have to get through Philips first, which gives us a nice bonus to electronics research. And it looks like in this run, Belgium is toast. It's going to be a Fortress Holland time, boys. And when the US offers you 1,000 guns a month, you say yes and thank you, sir. And another political power investment, the Concealment Specialist, 5% reduction to enemy air support, which is going to come in very handy when all those German Bf-109s come screaming into our airspace. Now, because the Germans are going to be throwing themselves at our lines once France falls, we're going to need more soldiers, and it's going to be risky to ship in colonial troops directly. So we're going to train a few of these Kolonial Garnizoen troops. We can make these from our own manpower, a few of these, a few more, and deploy them anywhere in our home territory. And once they have finished training, we are going to swap them over to the Infanterie Divisie, the template we've just created, to get ourselves some more troops to fill in gaps in front lines, reinforce weakened spots, and, very importantly, to garrison our ports, because we don't want some silly German walking into our port and ruining the achievement for us.
tomorrow.
Now might be a good time to start working on the improvements of our Dutch East Indies. It is 1940 after all, and Japan is going to come knocking soon, and we want Dutch East Indies to be in a good fighting shape by the time they arrive. Well, I'm sorry guys, this playthrough might not be the ideal way of how to deal with the German Reich when you're all alone, but hey, it is what it is. The AI will do crazy things. This is just one of the eventualities you might run into, and you'll be fortunate to have it this way. Achievement's gonna be easy. It does look like with German help they might actually be able to push through the Alps. So this game might turn interesting after all. Well, could it be? Could the Italians actually have broken through in the Alps? Well, we'll see in another year or so at this rate. It looks like the French and British have launched a series of suicidal counterattacks on German lines. Good job, guys. Good job. Always nice to have the Allied AI on your side. Now, it does look like a large Italian offensive to the south has finally managed to break the French lines. So it looks like this is going to be an interesting game after all. Now, it's certainly an interesting game at this point, but with the AI being what it is, it's hard to predict the outcome of these games, really. And with Wilhelminism in the bag, let's head down to Vaarplicht, request allied favors, and should France fall, we might actually be able to revive the buffer state proposal, meaning we will get all of this Belgian and Luxembourgish territory once we retake it. Now, this is assuming that we have a significantly higher war score contribution than we do now. So let's have a look. Yeah, we're gonna need more. But this should come relatively easily once France falls, because we will be the only thing left on the front lines, raking in the points. But all that is assuming France actually falls. Now, with Wilhelminism, you'll start getting these fun events. German defectors form divisions. Basically, you will get these boys. A decent template, the classic 7-2, with minimal equipment, but they are full up on manpower. They will reinforce your army and will help you to put the Kaiser back on the German throne. Which brings us to the second fun part of the Wilhelminism focus. Once we take significant amounts of German land, a German civil war will fire, with a small portion of the country deciding to side with the Kaiser. And this portion of Germany will be our puppet for the duration of the war, making it a little bit easier to take out Germany. So, current status of the game with us throwing a roadblock into Germany's way. Japan doing terribly, Germany doing terribly, and Italy doing terribly. The Axis are completely neutered because they could not walk through us into France. Well, at this point, there is little else to do but wait for the Americans to show up and push the Germans all the way back to Berlin. And it looks like the Soviet Union has also gone off the rails. They're attacking Turkey now. Okay then. Oh, do we have a breach? It looks like we have a breach. This might actually turn out interesting after all. Now, if France holds on this long, even if they do fall apart now, defending our country is going to be a walk in the park. If France folds very early, you'll actually have a challenge on your hands, but with the AI being what it is, I'm sorry, but I've recorded several of these now and they all turn out almost exactly the same. It's just a bunch of incompetent countries trying to fight each other.
2 hours later.
There we go. The fall of Paris, and France has capitulated. Now we are going to experience the full force of Germany's war machine against our fortified ring of dikes. To the windmills, boys! Now, as you can see, the Germans are so intimidated by the strength of our army and the sturdiness of our dikes that they're not even attempting to attack us. Well, at this rate, is just sit here and wait for 1945, I guess. It's look like the Soviet Union has completely gone insane. They're just gone to war with Turkey, Iran, and Afghanistan. Well, historically, the war in Afghanistan turned out great for them, so I don't see why they wouldn't. Oh well, you look at that. The transatlantic soldiers trade has begun, and the US has started funneling its entire army into the Allied war. Boy, that's a lot of American divisions dying in French fields.
Many months later.
Oh great, the Soviet Union has declared war on Greece, which means the Allies and the Comintern are also going to slug it out. This is wonderful. This campaign has really turned into something insane.
So much later that the old narrator got tired of waiting and they had to hire a new one.
There we go, 1945. We made it. Now let's have a little overview of the country. We still control Holland. We still have full control of Friesland, because we control 57% of the victory points. And we've also retained full control of Brabant, because again, we control 87% of the victory points. So our requirement to not lose our continental states has been fulfilled. Zuiderzee works have been continued and completed, so we can check that mark off as well. And finally, it is 1945. Go to our achievements. We have completed treading the narrow path, did not cave to the Germans, we continued to Zuiderzee works, and we did not lose control of any of our continental European states until 1945. And as a nice cherry on top, we did it the royalist way, the right way. All that's left now is to capitulate the Germans and the rest of the Axis, which might prove difficult considering the Soviet Union's also in this, but this game has just evolved into a giant mess. Just for the achievement, we're done here. I'm not going to continue this. The AI has given me a killer headache.